Now on BBC One, the BBC News with Martine Croxall.
So Mo Farah reveals to the BBC he was brought to the UK illegally from East Africa as a child. The four-time Olympic champion was given a new name and made to do housework and childcare and prevented from going to school for years.
Most people know me as Mo Farah, but it's not my name or it's not the reality.
We'll have more on Sir Mo's extraordinary story. Also this lunchtime, the Conservative leadership contest continues. Former Chancellor Rishi Sunak launches his bid, saying it's not credible to promise tax cuts now. And as Grant Shapps pulls out, the 10 remaining candidates in the race have until 6 o'clock this evening to secure the backing of at least 20 of their colleagues. Heathrow Airport limits the number of passengers who can depart each day to reduce travel disruption. NASA's new telescope delivers its first full-colour image showing light from galaxies that are billions of years old.
And coming up on the BBC News Channel, England will find out later who they face in the quarter-finals after storming into the last 8 with a record-breaking victory over Norway.
Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. Sir Mo Farah has revealed that he was trafficked into the UK as a child and forced to work as a domestic servant. The four-time Olympic champion told the BBC he was born Hussein Abdi Kahin, but was given the name Mohammed Farah by those who flew him from East Africa with fake documents. He previously said he came to the UK from Somalia with his parents as a refugee. Our Community Affairs correspondent Adina Campbell has the story.
One of the defining moments of the London 2012 Olympics. Sir Mo Farah on Super Saturday, taking gold in the 10,000 metres. Part of a record-breaking career, cementing his place in the history books. But life could have turned out to be very different, and we now know he's not who we think he is.
Most people know me as Mo Farah, but it's not my name or it's not the reality. The real story is I was born in Somaliland, north of Somalia, as Hussein Abdi Kahin.
In a new documentary, he also reveals he was a child slave, trafficked to the UK at the age of 9 and forced to work for a family in West London.
My job was to look after those kids, shower them, cook for them, clean for them. And she said, if you ever want to see your family again, don't say anything. If you say anything, they will take you away. Often I would just lock myself in the bathroom and cry and nobody's there to help. So after a while, I just learn not to have that emotion.
Despite what was happening behind closed doors, Mo Farah was a cut above the rest during his teenage years. And it was a conversation with his PE teacher who helped him escape from the abuse at home. And years later, the documentary captures the moment he's reunited with his mum, who he thought had died.
My mum's name is Aisha. I'll never forget my mum on that tape. Inside the tape, it had a number on it, like say, or call on the back of it. This is the number. And then I remember he said, if this is a bother or causing you trouble, don't, just leave it. You don't have to contact me. And I'm going, no, of course I'm going to contact you. And at that point, that's when I first called my mum.
Sir Mo says he's made this documentary to tell the world what really happened in his childhood and to shed light on this serious issue of modern slavery, to show people greatness can be achieved even after monumental trauma.
Adina Campbell reporting. Adina joins us now. So why has Sir Mo decided to talk about this now?
Well, Sir Mo says it was really important for people to understand exactly what he experienced all those years ago and to challenge perceptions of modern slavery and trafficking. However, there was a risk in terms of him making this documentary because back in the year 2000, when he was given British citizenship, that was under the name Mohammed Farah. But of course, we now know that's not his name. His name is Hussein Abdi Kahin. However, the Home Office has come back to us today and said that no action will be taken against him. He has the right to remain in the UK, and what happened should never have happened. But what this documentary has done is opened up this wider debate about the nature of children who are forced into domestic servitude. And it shows that it can happen to anyone, even people like Sir Mo Farah, one of the greatest athletes this country has ever seen.
And remain hidden.
Absolutely.
OK. Adina, thank you very much. Well, you can see the real Mo Farah on BBC One at 9 o'clock tomorrow night and also on the BBC iPlayer. In a speech to mark the official launch of his campaign to become the next Conservative leader, Rishi Sunak has said it's not credible to promise lots more spending and lower taxes. Conservative MPs have until the end of the day to win the support of at least 20 colleagues, allowing them to officially join the contest to be the next Conservative leader. Tomorrow, the first round of voting will take place among Conservative MPs. Candidates with fewer than 30 votes must withdraw. Further rounds of voting will whittle the number down to 2 finalists before the end of next week, with a deadline on Thursday, the 21st. Party members will then vote for who they want to be the next leader. Last time, 160,000 were eligible to take part. The results will be announced on the 5th of September. Our political correspondent Helen Catt reports.
Not one, not two, but 3 campaign launches this morning as nominations formally open in the Conservative leadership contest. Already assured of his place, Rishi Sunak, keen to paint himself at his launch this morning as the financially responsible candidate.
My message to the party and the country is simple. I have a plan to steer our economy through these headwinds. We need a return to traditional Conservative economic values, and that means honesty and responsibility, not fairy tales.
Looking on, the Transport Secretary Grant Shapps, who announced he'd dropped out of the race to back Sunak. At the same time in Westminster, the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee was launching his bid.
We need leadership with a renewed sense of mission. Leadership that sees beyond divisive politics and delivers results. Leadership that will return government to the service of our economy, our people and our country.
And also, elsewhere in Westminster, the former Equalities Minister Kemi Badenoch set out her pitch.
But throughout my life, there have been people who said, you can't, you shouldn't, this is not for you. And in politics, many people who said, you're in the wrong party, you're saying the wrong things, you can't do that. But I'm not the sort of person who you can sideline, silence or cancel.
She's one of several candidates competing for the votes of the party's right wing, along with the Attorney General, Suella Braverman, and the Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss. She picked up a couple of big endorsements this morning, shoring up the former Remainers' Brexit credentials.
Liz Truss is the best candidate. That's what we're working for. She's a proper Eurosceptic. She'll deliver for the voters, and she believes in low taxation.
Thank you, woman.
The big unknown is still whether the Home Secretary Priti Patel will throw her hat into the ring. Some worry that the right-wing vote will end up being split between too many candidates. Labour's shadow cabinet meeting in High Wycombe is concerned about what's happening while this is going on. It's planning to call a vote of no confidence in the government tomorrow.
Finally, the Tory party concluded that Boris Johnson was unfit to be Prime Minister. That was blindingly obvious a very long time ago. But having come to that conclusion, they can't now expect the country to allow him to cling on for weeks on end.
The reason there have been 3 launches happening at exactly the same time this morning in Westminster is because this contest is happening pretty quickly. Candidates have only got until 6 o'clock tonight to get the backing of 20 Conservative MPs to enter the race at all. And by the first round of voting tomorrow, they'll need the support of 30 to stay in. Which doesn't leave all that much time for schmoozing MP colleagues, as the party hopes to whittle down the field to just 2 by next week.
What's also been interesting this morning is to see some of the candidates starting to address some of their perceived weaknesses or criticisms head on. Rishi Sunak went out of his way to say that he wouldn't demonise Boris Johnson. Kemi Badenoch addressed concerns about her lack of cabinet experience. And that's because it's not just their MP colleagues that they've got to persuade. The final 2 will go on to face a vote of all Conservative members over the summer, and it is they who will choose the final winner.
Helen, thank you very much. Helen Catt in Westminster. The UK government has lodged papers at the Supreme Court to try to stop the Scottish Parliament holding a second independence referendum. Scotland's top law officer has asked the Supreme Court to decide whether Holyrood can pass its own legislation to hold another referendum. Ministers in London believe the Scottish Parliament does not have the power to hold another vote next year. A BBC investigation has uncovered evidence that members of the British SAS executed detainees and murdered unarmed people in Afghanistan. Panorama has discovered that one unit killed 54 people in suspicious circumstances, that senior officers failed to report the alleged murders and they didn't disclose evidence to the military police. The MOD says it will always hold UK troops to the highest standards and that they served with courage and professionalism in Afghanistan. Richard Bilton reports.
Special forces were out most nights. In the winter of 2010, the SAS were hunting the Taliban. But we have found some UK units were out of control. The SAS came here, a village in central Helmand, through a hole in the wall and into a building.
People here say that everybody in the house was brought into the courtyard and the Special Forces troops bound all the men's hands. And then one man was taken back inside and killed.
Haji Ibrahim was a former district governor. A UN investigation found he was not a threat, but an unarmed civilian.
His hands were tied at the front. He had been killed. They had shot him in the corner of his eye, and later they had fired a shot at my father's chest.
The suspicious killing was far from a one-off. Panorama obtained military reports that show people were repeatedly shot dead after surrendering to the SAS.
In report after report, Special Forces claimed they sent a detainee back into the building to help with the search. The detainee was then shot after supposedly grabbing a weapon.
Military insiders say the SAS accounts are implausible. Special Forces routinely search and restrain detainees.
Impossible. If the person was so negligent, you'd be getting rid of the Special Forces guy. You'd be saying, you allowed someone to grab a grenade behind the curtain. You don't deserve to be in the Special Forces. You could have got everybody killed.
We looked at one SAS tour and identified 54 suspicious killings in just 6 months. The evidence suggests SAS executions went on for 3 years.
I think allegations of the kind that you're making are incredibly shocking, and if they are true, then they would make me deeply sad and also deeply angry.
The Ministry of Defence said in a statement today, "We believe that BBC Panorama's episode about SAS operations in Afghanistan jumps to unjustified conclusions from allegations that have already been fully investigated." The main MOD investigation into war crimes in Afghanistan was Operation Northmoor, but senior investigators who were part of it have told us they were stopped from getting to the truth.
We were hitting brick walls in every direction. I believe there was pressure from above to shut down the investigation. It became increasingly clear to me that it didn't matter what evidence we were able to gather. These cases were never going to be allowed to go to court.
The Ministry of Defence says military police will consider any allegations should new evidence come to light. Some believe it is time to look again at the behaviour of SAS death squads that arrived in the night. Richard Bilton, BBC News.
Panorama SAS death squads exposed, a British war crime, is on BBC One tonight at 9 o'clock. Time is 1:15. Our top story this lunchtime. The four-time Olympic champion Sir Mo Farah reveals to the BBC that he was brought to the UK illegally from East Africa as a child. From travelling to the airport to a helping of tapas, the costs that holidaymakers are paying abroad this summer are higher than before the pandemic.
Later in the hour on the BBC News channel, we'll have all the latest reports, results, interviews and features from the BBC Sports Centre.
Soaring temperatures are continuing across many parts of the UK, with the Met Office issuing a weather warning for extreme heat across parts of England and Wales this weekend. In some places, temperatures could reach higher than 35 degrees Celsius. Our correspondent John Donnison has been finding out how people are coping with the heat.
Another lazy, hazy day for seeking out the shade, with temperatures once again around 30 degrees C and forecast to get even hotter.
I can't believe they're saying Saturday and Sunday could be in the 40s. I think that must be some sort of record, so we'll get 110, something like that. It's just mental weather. You do sweat a lot, I must admit, no lie, you know what I mean? Just take on plenty of deodorant, that's what you've got to do.
I'm originally from the Caribbean, so I'm kind of used to the heat, so I never really complain about it. So whenever it's really hot here, it just reminds me I'm back home, to be honest.
And this is no longer unusual. Every year for the last 10 years, the UK has had days where it's been over 32 degrees. So another year where we could see records broken. The hottest temperature ever recorded in the UK was in 2019, 38.7 degrees C. That was in Cambridge. But forecasters are saying the next few days could see the most sustained heat wave for more than 50 years, with temperatures even pushing 40 degrees C. In London's Hyde Park, people have been doing what they can to keep cool. And while many have been enjoying the sunshine, doctors are warning to look out for signs of dehydration and heat exhaustion.
Heat causes about 2,000 excess deaths every year. And so when we get these alerts, we really do want people to modify their behaviour so that they look out for each other, they look out for the most vulnerable, which includes both young people and older people.
The hot weather has been pushing up from southern Europe, and many countries on the continent have had it far worse. In Spain and Portugal, the extreme heat has led to wildfires. There, temperatures above 40 degrees have already been recorded, and France, Germany and Italy are all expected to hit similar highs over the weekend. And here in the UK and around the world, climate scientists have been warning for years that all of this is going to become the new normal. John Donnison, BBC News.
Heathrow Airport says it's introduced a cap on passenger numbers this summer as the aviation sector struggles to cope with demand. No more than 100,000 passengers each day will be able to depart from Heathrow until early September. The airport says it's ordered airlines to stop selling summer tickets to limit the impact on passengers. And our business correspondent, Caroline Davies, is here. Carrie, tell us a little bit more about why they're doing this.
Well, ultimately, Heathrow says that they are under-resourced, and we've all seen the images over the course of Easter, the half-term, the beginning of this summer, where you've seen crowds of people. We have seen backlogs, piles of bags that haven't been able to be processed and given to people. And this is part of the airport trying to stop that and try to improve the experience of passengers. But of course, the reality is this means that there will be flight cancellations, that there will be seats that will be cancelled as well. The cap is at 100,000. They'd anticipated about 104,000 every straight day. Now, this is still below pre-pandemic levels, which would have been about 110,000 to 125,000 departing. But even at that level, the airport is essentially saying that it doesn't think it can cope with that number of passengers at the moment, even though this is obviously a crucial period for the airport and the airlines to try and make up a lot of the money that they lost during the course of the pandemic.
So there will be cancellations and a lot of doubt about who they're going to affect.
Yes, so at the moment we don't know which airlines will be affected, we don't know which flights are going to be affected. We know that these cuts, Heathrow have said, will be proportionately done and also take into account the fact that some airlines have already cancelled some of their flights. But in terms of exactly how things are going to be rejigged, that's tricky. So they're saying that 1,500 more seats have been sold at the moment on average for each of these days than they have capacity for. So exactly how the airlines are going to be able to try and rejig things to get people onto other flights, to still be able to make their holidays, make their destinations, that might be tricky. And that's the next question that airlines will be looking at as well once they realise how many of those flights will be cancelled.
Caroline, for the moment, thank you very much. Caroline Davies. If you're planning on going abroad this summer, it's not just travel disruption that you'll need to bear in mind. New research has found some of the added holiday extras, things like insurance, parking and food abroad, have gone up dramatically in price. Our Consumer Affairs correspondent Coletta Smith reports.
We put a lot of coins in there, put quite a few coins.
It's happy holiday memories for the Baddow family.
There were so many types of pasta.
But their Eurocamp trip this Easter had a sting in the tail.
The cost of eating out and actually just buying food in the supermarket in Holland was so much more than we expected.
Well, it just felt surprising and a bit disappointing, I think, that it wasn't sort of as cheap as things used to be when you went on holiday.
Research for the BBC by travel comparison site Ice Lolly shows that average holiday prices have gone up, but so have all the extras. Compared to June 2019, single-trip travel insurance is up 40% to £52. Average airport parking prices are up almost 30%, but it's car hire that's seen the biggest increase, with rates more than doubling to £500 a week. Many rental companies sold their stock in the pandemic, and now there's a global shortage of new vehicles, so they can't get their hands on enough cars to meet the big demand this year. The pound has dropped in value too, so we're getting a little bit less euros or dollars for our cash. Great, thanks very much. Just like at home, inflation is spiking across much of the world, and that means that the prices on the menus are increasing. At this cafe in Benidorm, Ashley is facing much higher costs, but trying desperately to keep his prices fixed.
Many of our plates of food, we've not put the prices up because after such a couple difficult years in the tourism industry, we were a bit too worried to put the prices up and to scare away the potential customers that we're hoping to gain. So instead, we're taking the hit.
Karen writes a blog about travelling with children and has lots of advice to try and keep costs down.
I always look at booking my car hire straight away. I always look at booking my car parking at the airport straight away. These costs only ever go up before the holiday, and they tend to be the things that people forget to do until just before.
With so many disappointments over recent years, it's tempting to max out the credit card on holiday, but with rising costs once you get back home, keeping the reins on holiday spending will be more difficult, but more important than ever this year. Coletta Smith, BBC News in West Kirby.
Horses whose jockeys seriously breach whip rules will be disqualified under new plans put forward in a report by the British Horse Racing Authority. The rules will apply to riders who use 4 or more strikes above the permitted level, and jockeys will face double the length of suspensions for overuse in major races. The BBC has gathered evidence suggesting that problems scanning valid digital tickets may have contributed to the chaos at the Champions League final in Paris, and that stewards at the event may not have been properly prepared for frontline roles. French authorities have so far blamed the chaos on fake paper tickets among Liverpool fans, a transport strike and local troublemakers who broke in the Stade de France. Our Paris correspondent Lucy Williamson reports.
These scenes haunt France's global image. Fans with valid tickets blocked from the Stade de France. Caught between local gangs and tear-gassing police. But what caused the chaos at the turnstile here on the 28th of May. French authorities point to thousands of fake paper tickets among Liverpool fans. That's not what Steve saw.
You can see around me lots of people holding their phones up, trying to get their QR codes on the application. My partner's QR code did activate, and it was the only one I saw of dozens around me. Mine didn't.
Steve says the hold-up at his gate was caused by problems with digital tickets on UEFA's mobile app. UEFA says any glitches were due to fans not enabling Bluetooth on their phones. Steve, an experienced IT engineer, says he did.
I think it's a problem actually within the application itself. The download that I took off the App Store, its latest update a few days before the match resolved connectivity issues. And when we got to the match, we had connectivity issues.
We asked UEFA about this. They declined to respond until their own investigation was complete. Some traced the problems to the lifting of checks at the stadium entrance, where stewards were meant to activate digital tickets with a swipe card. Crowds, rerouted because of a rail strike, arrived at an entry point too small to handle them, overwhelming stewards. France's Football Federation told a Senate inquiry that more than 1,600 stewards, hired through private security companies, were all vetted and certified for work. But one experienced Stade de France steward, hired for the Champions League final, painted a different picture.
That day, we had agents on their first assignment, who were called 24 hours beforehand. The private agencies that work with the Stade de France don't have enough stewards, and sometimes have to recruit agents without professional training. I know a lot of people who have been VIP security guards at the Stade de France with no certificate or security training.
Official explanation for the scenes here has rested on fake tickets, local troublemakers and a transport strike. But there are other questions for France and UEFA to answer. Not just questions around fake tickets, but problems with valid ones. Not just the crowds, but the stewards put in place to manage them. Not just the chaos on the night, but the preparation of politicians and police. 14 months until the Rugby World Cup, 24 months until the Olympic Games. Some in this country are worried. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Paris.
It's the deepest, most detailed view of the universe we've ever seen and contains light from galaxies that has taken many billions of years to reach ours. This is the first image released by NASA from the world's most advanced telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope, which was launched into space last year. The pictures show some galaxies that date back more than 13 billion years, close to the dawn of time. Our science editor, Rebecca Morell, reports.
A deeper view of our universe than we've ever seen before. This is the first full-colour image from the James Webb Space Telescope, and it's teeming with galaxies. Some are from just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang.
We're seeing light that has journeyed for over 13 billion years to reach us. It's almost like a time machine. You're looking back into the far distant past. And so we can begin to answer those questions, such as how did the first galaxies and stars formed? I mean, the hope with this telescope is we see sort of almost in real time, as it were, a history of the universe playing out.
3, 2, unité, top.
And liftoff. The telescope blasted off last year on Christmas Day, the start of a new era of exploration. James Webb is a collaboration between the American, European and Canadian space agencies, and over the last 6 months it's been getting ready for its mission.
The James Webb Space Telescope is an engineering marvel. At its core is a 6.5 metre wide mirror made up of 18 hexagonal segments, each perfectly aligned to act as a single surface. It also has a sun shield the size of a tennis court to protect it from the heat and light of the sun. The telescope will look back further in time than ever before, showing us the light from the very first stars to shine. We'll also be able to see how they came together to form the earliest galaxies. And it will study other planetary systems, revealing whether life could exist beyond our world.
So having seen these very first images, we already are getting a hint of what this telescope is going to do for astronomy. I do truly believe that what we learn from this awesome new telescope is going to change the way we understand the universe in really fundamental ways.
This picture is from the Hubble Space Telescope. Until now, this has given us our best view of the cosmos. But here's the same image taken by James Webb. It's 100 times more powerful, and the difference is clear to see, revealing more galaxies and stars in far greater detail. But this is just the start. More images will be released in the coming hours. Our understanding of the universe and our place in it is about to be transformed. Rebecca Morrell, BBC News.
Makes you feel even more inconsequential, really, doesn't it? Let's take a look at the weather forecast, and Chris Fawkes has joined us. That is a very serene picture, but more cloud than you might have expected.
Yes, this is a change to the weather that some of us are having today. This is a picture sent to us earlier this morning from the Wales area, and that cloud's actually been thick enough to bring a little bit of light rain. No huge amounts, but you might see some of that this afternoon. Whereas across the southeast of England, it's the same old story with those temperatures hitting the 30s for the next few days. That extreme heat still expected to build as we go through Sunday and into Monday. I'll have more on that in just a moment. This afternoon then, here's that area of cloud. It is a weak weather front that's been bringing a few spots of rain to the peaks of the Pennines, into the hills of Wales too. Not much rain left on that at all, so most of you will probably have a dry afternoon. Still hot across the southeast of England with hazy sunshine, 32 degrees, but some sunnier weather pushing into Scotland and Northern Ireland, so brightening up here as the sunshine comes out. We've got the fresher air moving its way in. Now, overnight, for those of you that do live in southeast England and particularly London, it's another warm night for sleeping. 26 degrees. These are the temperatures at 10 o'clock in the night. Much more comfortable conditions that you'll find further northwards for Scotland and for Northern Ireland. Tomorrow, well, it'll be quite breezy for Scotland and Northern Ireland. There'll be a few passing showers here, some sunny spells. Dry again for England and Wales. Quite a range of temperatures, high teens to low 20s across northern areas, but we're still seeing that heat across the southeast with temperatures again hitting that 30-degree mark. On into Thursday's forecast, again there's a little bit more in the way of cloud, a few more showers to come across northern areas of the country. Mostly dry for England and Wales with some hazy spells of sunshine. Temperatures still on the high side across the southeast, but down a little bit. Highs into the upper 20s here, but for most of you, high teens to low 20s, so it's a more comfortable kind of day weather-wise. But we're still expecting this extreme heat to build, particularly through Sunday and Monday. The Met Office have issued this amber extreme heat warning for parts of England and Wales. The big question is, why really is our weather going to get so hot? Well, we've got this ridge of high pressure across Spain and Portugal, and over the next couple of days, actually, in Portugal, we could see temperatures of 47. The national record there is 47.3. And that bubble of hot air within this ridge is going to come our way as the ridge kind of grows, it amplifies, it expands. Eventually, we get that hotter air moving in across parts of the UK, and that will send the mercury soaring for us as well. So the really hot weather will be across England and Wales. The hottest areas probably on Monday, seeing temperatures into the mid, perhaps the high 30s. And even across Scotland and Northern Ireland, you will see those temperatures rising as well. But with temperatures in the hottest areas potentially heading up to the high 30s for a time on Monday, the all-time UK temperature record may well be under threat. We'll be keeping a very close eye on that over the next few days. Martine.
Chris, thank you very much. Very uncomfortable for some, though, isn't it? Thank you. A reminder of our top story. The four-time Olympic champion, Sir Mo Farah, reveals to the BBC that he was brought to the UK illegally from East Africa as a child. That's all from the BBC News at 1. So it's goodbye from me, and on BBC One, we now join the BBC's news teams where you are.